Hello, I'm Robert, and you're welcome here in my busy little shop. On today's episode of What's on My Workbench, I've got an extremely unusual project to share with you today. This item, I've never seen or touched one of these before. You may have seen them, but the majority of you probably haven't had one in your hand either. And this item is going to be placed in a private museum collection. And I'm saying that because in most places you wouldn't want to see it out on the street. I know you're really becoming intrigued as to what it is. This item I was honored to be asked to restore. It's got some old leather on it that is really degraded and fallen apart. So my part of it is going to be replacing all the leather that is on this item. So I'm going to let you follow along as I do this project as well. And there's a lot of elements here. In other words, I don't think you're ever going to probably repair one of these items out there, but there's a lot of elements that go into this that I think whenever I've said before, I watch videos of making saddles and such, and I don't really have a desire to create a saddle, but there's elements that when I'm watching them work on those, I'm like, ooh, that would be a unique way to finish, whatever project or to help secure leather in place. So with that said, I think today's video has got some value on that part of it. So I'm going to let you follow along. Enough of a ramp up here. We'll get over here on the workbench and we'll get this project started. I really do appreciate you taking time to be within the shop today. This is my project today. Like I said, the first thing I want to do is I want to get this leather off of here. I'm going to unwrap some of the handle here. I want to get a little bit of a lay for the land. I could just score up through here and do that. But I can cut here because I believe this is a Turk's head that was put together here. And there's wrappings here that held the lacing for the handle in place and stabilized everything before we put the Turk's head on there. So it looks like the leather they used for here probably terminated right here at this joint as well, which would be a good area to keep that held on there. So we're just kind of working our way down through here. This is this work's being done for a museum of sorts. It's going into a private collection here of old, I guess maybe call it self-defense items. So I just want to see how this ends here. All right, I'm curious really up in here to see how many strands they've got. I think it would take 6, but it could be that there's 4. There's 2 going that way. Gotta get here where it is not all falling apart. See how many strands we've got. I think I've not done a wrap like this before. Hopefully it stabilizes up here in a second and I can kind of get an idea of what I got here. The main thing is making sure I know just kind of really how to get it laid out and started, and part of that will get covered by the Turk's head. I'm sure that this has string wraps on this up here underneath of this Turk's head as well. So, and these are 1/4 inch wide. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm going to call it 6. Now on this, I believe that's a typical Turk's head that's up here. That's what it looks like. Here's one under, there's one under. And we'll get this. Yeah, this leather is just done. I'm going to cut through the Turk's head, or at least that's what I'm going to use as the Turk's head on it. Yep. So here's the looks like the Turk's head. And then we get down here, and these are the wraps that held the This is what held the handle here. It looks like they put a tack in it to try to keep it from wanting to pull out from underneath there. That's a good idea. And yeah, and a bunch of wraps here held all this together. Okay, so it's just a spot that somebody drove in there. Okay, I'm kind of surprised the end really wasn't covered much. I think I'll pull a piece of leather over that, and it may have had something like that to start, and then I will do my braided handle on top of that. Yeah, this is the wraps that held the leather over the head of it down here. Wouldn't want to get hit in the head with that. That's probably there's probably close to a pound of lead out here on the end. So let me, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to set up, and we need to cut some lace for us from some black leather. He wants it to be back black again. Guess it'd be a brown jack if it was. No, probably wouldn't. It'd be a brown blackjack. So I thought I would do this. The leather's going to be all black, so it's going to be harder for you to see the way I'm weaving this handle. But I started off with 4 pairs up here, and I started with the left one going under the right one on each one all the way around here. Wrapped that tight, and then I started my weave. And it's a little bit, you kind of have to kind of keep adjusting as you go, because you get around here now. Now this one here I need to catch up. So it's over and under like that, and then over the next one here. And I'm consistently pulling up and tightening up this weave as I go around here. So this one's over and under, and then over again and under here. And I'll rotate around here and bring this next one here, bring it back up tight, and do the same over under weave on here. I need different articulated fingers to hold this all the way around here, I guess, but I'll get there. I get around one side here and I get that caught up, and then if I bring it around here, now I need to bring this side up as well. And I just kind of keep tightening it up, and the diamond shape is going to change as I go because the diameter of the spring changes, or the diameter of the handle changes as I go. So that's going to make the diamonds a little bit different. I don't think anybody's going to be shocked at it when they see it. And then obviously when I do it permanently, I'll be using black. But like I said, I thought maybe you would like to see how this looks here. Now we need to catch up this side. So over, under, yeah, You don't need me to say, but I'll let you watch for a minute here while I struggle. Weave this through here. I've never done a weave like this before, but I figured it just kind of common sense kind of shows us how it's done. So I think I've probably got enough here so you can see it. Kind of looks like one of those Chinese finger cuffs there. But I think the leather will have plenty of stretch for that spring handle. And yeah, so now that I had fun there, I'm going to go ahead and dye the leather black that I need. I'll cut it into these 1/4-inch strips, and then we'll be back to do the real thing. The next thing I need to figure out is the amount of leather for this here. I'm not going to make it blue, but I'm just going to show you my idea is that I cut leather that's going to fold over like this and be sewn. It'll probably be, I'll probably do it as 2 separate pieces, and it'll be sewn inside out, and then I'll turn it right side out, wet it, and pull it down over here. So, and I'll probably need to bring it down like this far, and then these wraps will go over it, and then there'll be another wrap over the top of that. So should be pretty stable. So I purchased this strap cutter. Actually, I found this in an antique store. My wife and I were in an antique store, and she, I think, actually found it before me. But I have since looked, and these are like $65 or $70, something like that. And I paid $5 for it, so I'm going to say that was a good find. I'm just trying to keep it here against the side here without rolling it up on it, because this is some 2-3, and it's, I think, closer to the 2 ounce. So it's fairly thin, but I thought this would make a good lace for what I'm working on here. And I replaced the first 5 blades. They're actually a little bit smaller than your typical utility knife blade. So I just happen to have some that were that way. There we go. I didn't go through the trouble to try to figure out how much I needed. I just dyed some leather here. To the side. So my edge ones may not be consistent, but the rest of them should be. That tool works pretty good. I'll say that it will pay for itself here on this first one. And yeah, so we'll set these over here, and I'm going to work some saddle soap into these. And I know a lot of times, especially on the Turk's head that I'll be doing, people will bevel these to make it a smoother handle. But I'm thinking that this tool, the handle on the tool, it might be better to have, you know, a little bit more of a ridge on there, not as smooth. I think doing this will polish this up a little bit, maybe make it a little easier to weave into a tighter pattern. So I'm going to do that to the 8 that I need for the handle, and the ones I need for the Turk's head, which hopefully these are long enough. I think they probably are, but time will tell. I need to figure out which ones are the longest ones and use that for the Turk's head knot. So I'll go ahead and finish doing that, and then I'll be back. All right, let's shift gears for just a moment. We're going to work on the covering for the top of this device. And the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to sew this inside out, and then I'll turn it right side out. Hopefully I can get that done. And then it's going to cover like this. All right. I cut it extra long. So someone wants to know what this is. This is 3 1/4 ounce leather, and it is 2 1/8 by 9. The way I envision that working is I'm going to sew along here, and I was concerned about having too small of a seam allowance here because it's going to be forcefully pulled over the end of the tool here. So I want to make sure I've got plenty of strength there. So the way I figured that, or one way that you can figure that, is to take a tape measure and wrap it around here, burn 1 inch. So I've got 3 1/2 inches around that. So that's 1 3/4 inches. And 1 3/4 inches is going to be probably about 3/16 seam. Now, I'm thinking if I line it up here, that'll help with the seam. But what I want to do is I want it to be wet formed and stretched over this. So I'm gonna create, I may have to redo this. I'm gonna create nearly a 1/4 inch seam allowance on here. So there's 1/4, and I'll just do slightly less than 1/4. And then I'll follow these stitch lines with my stitching chisels. And I will be using my 4mm set here because I'm concerned about having space too far apart. And I'll start up here. I'm going to carry that line through here and this line through here. I guess I could have applied my contact adhesive before I started. I'll keep it lined up here. And I left this run wild here, but as I'm thinking about it, I don't think I want to leave it too much wild because I'll have stitches down here. But you know what? That's going to be okay because I'm going to trim it to where it's probably 3/4 to 1 inch here overlap, and then it's going to be wrapped, so there's no way it can come undone. I know, usually you see me in my stitching pony, but I thought I would go back to revert to how I used to do it. These stitches you won't be able to see, so if they're not perfect slanted, we should be fine. Oh, you know what? I want to put contact adhesive in here. Let me work this loose. Anybody else ever get the cart before the horse? That's me today here. These stitching holes will help me keep aligned though. I want to keep my contact adhesive in this range. I suppose it wouldn't hurt if it was overlapped slightly there, but I don't want it to be too far over and cause issues for the assembly. All right, let's put these together. Okay, I'm back where I was here. Yeah, I should have just transfer that line to the inside, put the contact adhesive on, and then done the holes. So we're just about finished up here. I'll put a knot on here, and we might as well go ahead and tap these threads and stitches and contact adhesive down and together. Make it as much of one cohesive unit as possible. All right, let's measure this for prosperity. We have 1 and 11/16. 1 and 11/16 between them. Of course, that's times 2. Oh, she's gonna be tight, especially by the time I get the threads in there. I'm gonna go soak this in some water, and we're gonna come back and see if we can install this. Be right back. I was not really afraid to get it wet, because I am afraid on turning this right side out. Hopefully I can get that done. That's gonna be the harder part here, I think. If I can't do it, I got to come up with a different way to create this pouch. I didn't want the seam on the outside. Someone suggested I'd make some dowel rods, blunt-ended dowel rods to do that type of a deal with. I probably need to do that. It might help to do a little soapy water, but we'll try this first. I'm wondering now, how much extra do I have? I have quite a bit. All right, here's where it usually goes off the rails, right? Either that or someone's like, that was a great idea. line that seam up. Wasn't thinking about that when I came back to it. Kind of hoping that chunky seam fits down that groove a little bit. It's a job. If there's somebody out there that says that I made that and didn't fit it tight enough, then I don't know what to tell you. I think I'm going to go ahead and wrap this. So that if it has any shrink, it's not from this end. I made that little loop underneath here. If I don't get this too tight where I can not able to do what I want to do, I'll put this through here and pull that underneath. There we go. I didn't get up close there. I think I want to get closer. Let me put another one on there. And it doesn't have to be cut off close. It's going to get all covered up. And I'll trim it off here out a 1/4 of an inch or so from the whipping. I have dirty hands. All right, I'm gonna let this dry overnight. I've had enough fun on this project today. I'm gonna switch gears, do something different for a while. Let that dry. Next we'll do the wraps down to here. And we're making progress. Okay, I let this dry overnight. I went ahead, I don't know if I recorded it, but I went ahead and bound my 4 pairs of lace on here. I call it 4 pairs, but it's obviously just 8 strips. But I'll operate them as separate pairs here at the beginning with the left one on each pair underneath the right, like this. I'm glad I did the practice one yesterday with the two colors, because I think that helped you see the difference and helped me get comfortable with the process. I probably have way too much leather here to complicate things. At times seems to be my theme. So I guess I'll just start here. Got to start somewhere, right? So that one's under. So this is under that one there. I think getting started sometimes is hard on a weave. At first it maybe looks like it's not coming together the right way. I don't know. Maybe there's a calculator. Does somebody have a calculator in mind? And what I mean by that is how much thread do I need to get started? I think a little confused. Let me get this. Let me go over here. That one's under there. You'll know pretty quick if you got something out of order, because it definitely has to go the correct way. That one's over that one. Under this one. Under, over, under. It's coming together here. All right, I'm going to do my final snugs here. Get it pulled in the right direction and tight. Get this rubber band. I'm not going to put this where I want my wraps to be, but I just want to try to stabilize this some here as I play with it. It doesn't become undone, so to speak. I'll do more of this work here when I get it situated, but I think that helps flatten it out. I think what I'm going to do though, I think before I apply my wraps there, I'm going to wet this just a little bit down here. And my idea is that it'll help the threads to penetrate, or not penetrate, compress the leather underneath the wraps here. So let me let that case for a minute here. Okay, let me start with my initial wraps here. I want to stay below that joint with them. And I think I want about 1/4 inch wide of wraps here. Check, I want to make sure I'm not getting up on top of this smooth leather area here. And I'm not, it's like right there. All right, I think that's enough. Back through that loop I've formed. Hopefully I don't have too much tension on here, but I think I'll be able to pull that underneath. And that, just pull it underneath there. I came a little too far, so I'll just pull it back some. Okay. Glad to have that done. I'll trim these off here. I think pretty good. You can see a little spring showing there, but this is going to have a wrap on it. I might as well trim these. I'm going to put my knife under here so I don't cut into that. And careful not to get into my whipping thread. I mean, the worst, right? You just start again. I'm going to roll this now. Helps flatten those ridges out some. I think that looks pretty good. All right, so I think we're looking pretty good here. We need to work on our handle next. I'm just going to work this leather a little bit here, smooth it out, front and back. The next thing I need to do is to align the handle here, my handle material, or plan where I'm going to put it. And the seam makes it a little bit wider this way than thick this way. So I think I want my handle material to attach about here on this. So what I'll do is it's going to go on here and come around to there. But the next thing I need to work on up here is the finish here. And what's going to end up happening is we're going to have a Turk's head here that's going to attach this leather on here. And to keep the Turk's head from wanting to move on here, I think the best thing to do is to create a bit of leather that'll be built up on here. So I've got a piece of the same leather that I made my lacing out of, and I'm going to case that. I'm going to stay back away from the cap because I don't want this, my work to then end up having a hole in it show. But I thought this might make it easier for me to put this in place. All right, so I've got this piece of leather on here. I notched it a little bit, stayed away from the top because I don't want to have an issue there of it showing. Keep my whipping within a 1/4 inch here. All right, we have the tip here covered. We've got that on there. I do see a little spring there and definitely spring there, but that's going to still get covered. I believe my design will work that way. That's my goal. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to attempt to use this spot, two-pronged spot that was part of this to begin with, and put it in here. And I created a couple holes here with my awl just to kind of get started. And my hopes is that when it hits a spring, it's going to bend outward some. Probably be better the other direction, wouldn't it? Well, let's see what happens here. I was concerned the other way it might cut those threads, and I don't want those cut or compromised. Yeah, I'm happy with that. Okay. I'm just trying to secure the end of that thread. So we're going to now stop and work on my Turk's head, which I might do that as its own video. If I do, then when we come back, you'll see here the Turk's head and installing that. Pretty good ridge here. I'm going to tighten this down on here and see if that's going to be enough without adding to it, because I'm concerned about how I hold that in place. And I could glue it on just a strip from here around to there to make it the same as this, but we're going to try this. So the next thing you do is slide that Turk's head down on here, and I kept that same working or standing in here, and now we're going to go through here and we're going to tighten this up over this area here. So this is my original line here over to here. So we're going to pull the slack out of it. Don't pull it out. And then come over here, and all you're doing is finding where this one ends up, what was around the pin on this side. And I'm keeping this kind of pinched here so I don't lose that. And then snug this one down as well. And you're chasing that all around here. So we pulled out here where that pin was. Come around over here. Over here's where that pin was. So we're going to pull that this direction. And this one. So this is my second tightening. All the way over here where this pin was. And right now I'm able to tighten all the way across the Turk's head from one side to the other. I'll make sure everything stays finished side of leather up. This line here. And this one. This one. This is my second Turk's head knot that I have ever tied. I did one as a test, small one made out of lace around my pencil, and it's this one here.
Stay over this here.
And here. I'm going to center it so that it's just over the end of the, so I'm going to pull it up here just so that these wraps are on the top edge of this cap that I made out of leather. So we're trapping the handle and everything here. So now we're going to do another tightening. So I've done 2 tightenings here. Now we're going to get down. It's going to get a little bit harder to do. And it is this one here. I won't get much because I'm pulling against my standing end down here. And now I'm going to come across this direction. And just keep working this down tight. Across here. And then we're back on the beginning of this knot. And I need to make sure I keep these 2 laces one on top of the other. So we can see we're starting to get there. Make that cover here. So it's decorative, but to me it's also functional. It's going to be tight enough that it'll help hold this all together here. So we'll start here again. This was my starting end here, and this is my working end. So I'm thinking about this. I think I want to get this tucked underneath there. I think it'll hold better if I do. So let me see if I can push this underneath here. It'd been easier to do from the beginning, wouldn't it? There we go. Okay. Keep this trapped here. I don't think I'd pull it out of there by this at this point, but I'm gonna pull this pretty snug here and go back the other direction. And I'm really getting it tighter now. Not working out a ton of slack at this point, but it's significantly tighter than it was. And you can see I've got it trapped here over this end of the implement. It's gonna be my last time. I could probably pull another ½ inch out if I went around again. But this is pretty doggone tight. I think it's going to do its job as both decorative and mechanical. Now I'm back over my start. What do you think? I think that's going to do it. I'm going to think here a little bit. I may go ahead and go one more time around. Let me roll this flat. I think this helps it look better. here. All right, now that I have the Turk's head here, you can see if I had this on here, it would be pretty hard to build it. I guess you could build a Turk's head here and then slide it up, but I'm glad I was thinking far enough ahead to get that on there first. So the next thing I need to do is I'm going to establish the length that I want, which I think is going to be about like that. And I'm just going to put a little crease here for now. The next thing I want to do, I liked how this Turk's head is wrapped around the end here, and then it's on the edge of where I did that cap. So this holds it all in place. I don't really have anything here to build upon. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut a strip of leather that is a 1/2 inch wide. This Turk's head here ended up being 1 inch wide. A 1/2 inch strip of this leather. I'm using black in case it shows through anywhere. I don't want that to cause an issue for me. All right, so I've got my leather cut, and I want to have 2 wraps here, 1 wrap under there. I think the way to do that is to start here and wrap around here. There'll be 1 underneath the handle or the guard, like that. Then this will be here, and then I'll come back all the way around to there. That will give me a ridge, I guess, lack of a better term, for that Turk's head to tighten down upon. And I'll trim it off here. This is barge. I typically use weldwood, but I have an ongoing test comparing barge, masters, and weldwood. Let's take a look at this. I did go ahead and put contact adhesive here out. So it's a little bit of the area here that's going to get trapped, and from there out. So I'm going to take my deal here, and I said I wanted to start against it on this side. So there. And I think I'm going to set back here. I need to create some wraps on this to hold it in place, and I'm going to do that just here along this shoulder. So let's go around here. I'm just pulling it nice and tight. And now we're here. This guy can go right next to that step. All right. Now, you ever get to a point you're like, oh, I guess I shouldn't have. I shouldn't have put contact adhesive on this outer part here. I thought, it won't really matter, but it is. It's going to be really hard to tighten up a Turk's head against contact adhesive. So what to do about that? All right. I'm afraid to be able to see through and see it. That's why I'm not using white paper. I'm just going to use some black paper here and cover that up, just so I'm able to do what I need to do. So I just use some black paper around here to keep that from becoming an issue. And now I'm going to create some wraps here to hold this handle in place. I'm just thinking if this, where I want to start, I think this is as good a place as any. I can't think of any reason not to. I thought about enough of this thread to cover up the contact adhesive, which would probably work. And I'm going to come around here, and I want this leather here trapped on the back side of this area here. So you can see there's the buildup here, and I'm around here, and I'm going to wrench down on that pretty tight. I've never broke tiger bits of thread like this. We'll see if I can now. And now we'll come back up on top here, and I'll put a few wraps here. Make sure my handle looks like it's lined up, and it does. I hate going backwards, but now would be the time to fix that if you had that issue. Through my whipping. And let's see if I can pull this underneath there. Okay, and we have, I don't need to cut it off close because it's going to get covered. And I am going to be super careful here. I definitely don't want to cut this leather here, but at this point I'm trying to keep from cutting the tiger ritza. If I did, I would just redo my wraps. There we go. Yeah, I mean, I might be able to pull it out from right there, but it's in there tight. I think that's good. It probably could have been a little bit shorter, but I think that's fine. This nub down here gives you something to get purchase against. All right, I'm gonna make a Turk's head for this one, and I'll be right back. And now I'm gonna slide it over my project. I'm just going to work it up over that edge there so it's centered on the area that I built up, that ridge. This is still my standing end, and I'm going to trap that here so it can't go anywhere. And I'm going to come over here, this is the other side of it, and pull a little bit of slack. I won't get a whole lot because I'm pinned down over here. And this is the first tightening here. So then I'm going to take that same strand, follow it all the way around where it come out to where it was around that needle on this side, and pull that down here. I'm not getting crazy tight. I'm just trying to get slack out of this at this point. So I'm taking smaller bites here. It's easier to work. All right, so it helps to use my fake bone folder here to kind of tighten up these edges here a little bit. Use it to kind of push it where you want it. And make sure they're kind of tucked in here and even around here. I think they look pretty good. Now we will trim these. I've got it laid on top of the other one there. I want to be really careful here. I hate to start over now. There's one more thing that can kind of help define this, and that's to roll it and flatten that out. I don't know, what do you think? I think it looks pretty good. Let's just keep it from sliding off your hand. We're going to finish this up with a little bit of protectant. I'm using Resin here. This is really, in my opinion, to protect the person from getting black dye on them if this thing gets wet. You could use others if you prefer others. I'm just trying to make sure I get it down in everything here. Don't want to leave any foam on here. That foam would show when you're done. We'll let that dry. I'll probably come back and put one more coat on there, and then we'll do a wrap-up video here in a minute. I'll tell you what, I think this has been a very unusual project. I've had a string of those this summer here in Colorado, and I hope you enjoyed it there. And the video that I created of the tool itself didn't come out very good, so I'm going to put some pictures in here. Well, you can tell by looking at these photos, I think that it really turned out nice. The project required me to learn some new skills. I always enjoy that because then I find other areas to utilize those. The Turk's head I had never done before. I had seen them and thought, one of these days, figure out how to tie that. Well, it really needed to be on this one. And I've done some tassels on poles on purses before, and a small Turk's head on that I think would have really set the project off. So I'm glad that I learned that now. And it's really pretty simple to tie a Turk's head. So I think that will help me. The gentleman that was in charge of getting this tool worked on for the collection was ecstatic with how it turned out, very happy. And so anyway, I'm glad to get it finished and off to you guys. The editing of this is the bigger challenge. And so we'll see if I can get this thing narrowed down to where it wasn't quite so long to watch. Well, there you go. I think, well, you tell me. Put notes in the comments if you think it turned out good. I think it's really nice to have new skills in my toolbox that I can mix into other projects down the road, and helps build confidence in those areas. It's been a long enough video as it is. I'm going to wrap up there. I do appreciate you spending time with me in the shop today. Please like, share, and subscribe. But more importantly, I do hope that you and your family have a great day.